Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fancy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about one of my most anticipated releases of 2025, and that's The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So this is a fun start to what promises to be a fun series, even if it's just a start. If this is just the start of how everything kicks off. So what is this book about? When Brother Diaz receives a summon from the Pope for an audience, he sees it as his golden opportunity to finally rub his superiority into the faces of his brother monks. So you can imagine his horror when he not only finds himself at the head of his own new congregation, comprised entirely of the church's more, let's call them colorful parishioners. He not only finds himself at the head of this very, very unique section of the church, he also finds himself dispatched on a mission that's going to have massive geopolitical ramifications for the world and for the current status of the religion. So yeah, that's kind of the setup from which we pretty much launch into this book, and there's some things I absolutely loved about this book and some things that didn't quite land for me. Let's get into all of it. Like I said, it's probably my most either this or Guy Gabriel Kay's Written on the Dark. If you'd asked me before I read both of them, I'd say either one could be my most anticipated release of 2025. And for the most part, it delivers everything I love about Joe. First and foremost, I want to talk about just the world, because this is a combination fantasy and alternate history, and this world we get quite a bit more magical elements than we've seen in anything Joe's written to date. This is a world in which an infamous city in European history never fell, and as a result, it went on to play a very significant part in the future of the world. When the church undergoes in this book, the religion that comprises such a big part of the story is obviously modeled off of Christianity, and in this world's version of the Great Schism, that city that never fell actually became this world's stand-in for Constantinople, becoming the seat of the eastern head of the church, whereas Rome maintained the western head of the church, the Pope and Patriarch, respectively. So that's kind of where the religious and geopolitical alliances kind of fall. In addition to that, like I said, this world is full of all manners of fell beasties, including elves, incidentally, who are the standing in this world's in this world's story for the Muslim world. Basically, they occupy all the territories that medieval Islam would have occupied, and the place in history that it would have occupied. So why all of that context matters is because of the crew that the crew that we spend so much of this book with, and the story that it's obviously built into. Like, if you know the general history of this time, you can already tell from that setup exactly where all of this is headed. And Joe isn't exactly shy about making it quite clear where he's taking the story with either. Like, you can tell pretty much from the get-go. But this crew is a motley crew of think Suicide Squad. Basically, this is Joe's version of a Suicide Squad, and it's exactly what you would think. Like, these are, for the most part, almost the entire crew are comprised of people convicted by the church of various crimes against God, and they're forced against their will to carry out different acts that further the expansion of the religion, basically. So that's kind of what happened. That's kind of where all of this is launching off of. The crew itself, like the cast, you know Joe's prime thing is characterization. So you can imagine the fun he has with this cast. We have a cast that's almost evenly split between veterans and people who are new to the quote-unquote team, and that division is pretty clear in regards to the people who we get backstory for and the people who we see undergo character arcs. Where those character arcs end is an entirely different story, but they do undergo character arcs. We'll leave it at that. So, like I said, Joe's a massive characterization, and you really see it shine in this book. We have we have such a varied, unique cast of individuals that we follow. Like there's some that really stick out. A personal favorite, and I think someone who's going to be a fan favorite, is actually someone who's quite tragic when I really think about it, because she's absolutely going to be a fan favorite, but she clearly suffers from a mental handicap that the more you think on it, the more tragic it seems when you really consider the ramifications of what that handicap means for her. And the other character who just really stood out for me is probably one of the quietest members of the crew. Funnily enough, she is probably the single most despised entity of all the creatures of all the people that we follow in this book. She's probably the one of the most despised, but at the same time, Joe being Joe with his ironic self, she is the one that most embodies the traits of humanity and the religious values that are upheld in this world. So take with that what you will. Those are the two that just really stood out for me. And of course, this being Joe, we have to talk about the next big thing, the next big factor of this book, which is just the religious aspect. Like, this is Joe does in this book with religion what he did in the first law with war and heroism and all of that. Like, he just vivisects it straight down to the and we just get this dissection and just this snarky examination of religion. We consider the we look at the fallibility of the human that's preaching the infallibility of the God, if that makes sense. That's when you think of the scenarios that are depicted in here, where it comes to not just religion but religious institutions and the acts that they inspire people to perform and perpetuate, in the negative sense. They like that's pretty much what this book is all about, highlighting the fallibility of the human that upholds the infallibility of the God that they worship. This being Joe, he's very sharp when it comes to some of the depictions. It's just hilarious at times. It can border on the outrageous, but at the same time, for me, given some of the very real world stuff that he could have drawn on, he's clearly pulling punches. That being said, this is very much a first of three books. Like, I'm sure he's saving some of the big guns for later on. We'll probably see some significantly more outrageous stuff as we go. I hope, at least, because there's certainly some controversial material he could decide to pull on, to say the least. So that's what I think about the characters and like the major theme of the book. As to the events, the plot itself, it's Joe. It's a fun run from start to finish. We have a self-contained story in here that very clearly sets the stage for what's to come. Like, you can see all the pieces that are moved into place. It's just blatantly laid out what's going on here. As to how this book is as to how many of the events of this book play out, honestly, I can really only describe it as cinematic, because it's often very predictable. Like, you can just smell what's going to happen right before it happens in most cases, and Joe rarely disappoints in that regard. It's not that you're going to be able to guess the entire book. There's a few twists in here to keep the tension and the interest up, but for the most part, a lot of this book is very predictable. Like I said, the cinematic option is often what Joe goes for with the events that are played out here, and it's something, for me, it felt like something he's very aware of, because he even pokes fun at it himself. Like, there's a very distinct scene where the one of the villains has his big reveal, hoping for shock and awe, and like the response of the character who was subjected to that, it highlights how predictable the predictability of that particular plot twist, we can say. So because of that, like, I wasn't quite like hooked and absolutely needed to know what happened next. Like, it's pretty easy to go to kind of smell where things are going, more or less. I just had more fun. I just had quite a bit more fun just enjoying the journey with these characters. The bonds and the relationships they form, antagonistic and otherwise, between each other. And they're a very colourful cast, to put it mildly. And it made for some engaging reading. In addition to that, even though, like I said, the other reason why I kind of had to describe the way Joe kind of plots out this book as cinematic is because some of the sequences in here, like when I read how he describes what goes on, and I kind of imagine how they play out in my mind, like there's no other word to describe how insane some of this stuff gets. So there's that. Overall, I have to say it's a great book from Joe. Like, it's nice to see him finally write something other than First Law. As much as I love First Law, and I do very much want more First Law from him. Like, it's nice to see him switch gears a bit and come with something different. And there's just plenty of fodder here for him to just get his hands dirty with when it comes to 2 more installments, which this is a planned trilogy. I think he said he sold a trilogy or something of this. So, like, it's just a fun book with his signature style. If you're a fan of his, I personally think if you're a fan of his, you're only going to find what you love about him in this book. And I personally enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to see where it's headed from here. And yeah, that's pretty much my take on The Devils. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.